Welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills.
Brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, located in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So, the Eagles pulled it out. Huge win.
I don't think they pulled it out.
They dominated.
They stomped it out.
Dominated. True domination.
Yep.
Super Bowl 59, final score 40-22. There's just so many. The thing that frustrated me during the week, or during the 2 weeks off, was the mainstream media, which we know is woke. We know they have different agendas, talking so much. They brought up Patrick Mahomes being in the GOAT category. Like, he's not even ready for second place yet.
No.
Let alone, we're not even close to talking.
I'm not even sure he's in third place.
Correct. I mean, the kid's been 4 Super Bowls. He's won 3. He's been to a lot of AFC championship games. I think he's been to the AFC championship every season of his career, which is extremely impressive. But when you look at and say greatest of all time, I mean, Tom Brady, I think, has been in like 15 or 20% of all Super Bowls ever played.
Right.
Like, come on.
But let me ask you this. Is your only
for that
yardstick for the GOAT is how many championships? Yeah. That's it?
Pretty much. I mean, how many you won and how many you lost? Like, sort of like the LeBron, Michael Jordan. Okay. It's, LeBron's catching up to his record. How many losses did Jordan have in the finals?
Yeah,
0.
And I understand that. But now you look at someone like Peyton Manning. You don't think Peyton Manning is one of the greatest to ever play the fucking position?
But see, there's a difference saying one of the greatest as opposed to the one and only greatest of all time. Like everybody talks about, there's one GOAT. Right. You could say the best quarterbacks, absolutely. Peyton Manning's in that category. Joe Montana's in that category. Heck, you could even say, you talk Dan Marino and Aaron Rodgers, some of the most accurate quarterbacks to ever play the game of football. But if the criteria is the one and only greatest of all time, right. I got to say, how many times did you win the last game of the year?
I agree.
And Brady's won it more than the majority of the franchises out there, let alone quarterbacks.
Again,
so
it's amazing to me that they're even having this conversation of the GOAT.
That's what I said. Like, well, at the same time, too, they talk sports 24 hours a day, every day. And when we were kids, it was like a 1-hour show that they'd repeat over and over, and then they'd have a night show later on that night. So there's just so much time that they're talking and just this nonsense starts coming out. So that's a starter. But now, talking positive, Jalen Hurts during the week, they were saying he's not that good of a quarterback. He's more of a situational quarterback. He can't throw the ball. And we saw what happened. I mean, Saquon Barkley, who scored more yards or rushed for more yards than any other running back, he got held down in this game. Next man up has to step up. Jalen Hurts, I don't see his stats right in front of me, but I think he was like 17 for 22, had 200-some yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 70 yards on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown. I mean, he did what he had to do to play nearly a perfect game in that Super Bowl to get that win for Philly.
I guess I saw it more of a game of 2 offensive lines because that's what that's where my heart is. That's what I watch. The Eagles' offensive line. And they say, well, how can you say that they dominated when Saquon didn't have as many rushing yards? You still had to respect Saquon the entire game.
100%.
So even when he wasn't having big breakouts, the minute you don't respect the run game from the Eagles, they're going to pop one. So even though he was kind of held down from his usual great performance, you still had to respect it. And so therefore – the Eagles were able to pretty much manipulate and run their entire offense, be able to throw the ball, pass the ball, play action pass, and all the fun stuff that, that you talk about as an offensive lineman. So I thought it was great. Obviously, we saw that Pat Mahomes never felt comfortable one time. I think he was sacked almost like the first or second play of the game.
Yeah, between the sacks, the interceptions. I mean, you got Cooper DeJean on his birthday getting a pick 6 his rookie season in the Super Bowl. I mean, so here's a couple things I want to talk about defensive-wise that I don't think people fully appreciate. So first off, what I want to mention, obviously, because we got to talk a little East Coast here with Philly winning, Vic Fangio, the D coordinator for the Eagles, he's from Dunmore, Pennsylvania, about 5 minutes outside of Scranton.
He sounds like somebody from Dunmore.
Vic Fangio, yeah. He's practically family for crying out loud. So they blitzed a total of 0 times that whole game. They had 16 pressures, 6 sacks, And based on the stat company, Mahomes was pressured over 38% of the times he dropped back. That is insane from a defense. But me and you talked about it too, whether it's halftime or at some point in the game, you got to do something. You can't, on that stage, with how much hype you have, I don't care how good the Eagles defense is, you got to do something. You can't just allow that to happen all game long. I mean, Mahomes, for how good a quarterback he is and how good the Chiefs are, it looked like they were the JV team out there, the way he was running around.
Agreed.
He was running scared for his life.
And there are things you could do. If you're only rushing 4 down linemen and you have 5 offensive linemen, and granted, linebackers, but there was no blitzes.
There was no blitz.
So you have a guy that's uncovered. Yep. At some point in time, you have to be able, and we talked about this, how you and McIntosh during games have Max set wide on his kick set, and the guy would spin inside, and there you were, and you would just light his ass up.
You got to set a tone. I mean, even to the extent, and I'm not saying playing dirty, but play within the realm of the game. And, hey, maybe you say to the quarterback, listen, get the ball out quick this time. We got to destroy this guy, and somebody might come free. And just light somebody up, because you got to make them, you got to slow them down somehow. If you can't slow them down with your technique, you got to put something in their head that they got to keep their eyes open for.
How about the cut block?
Yeah.
The minute you go after somebody's knees, guess what?
Absolutely.
In the back of their mind,
slow them down.
They're thinking like, oh, shit, it's going to be a long game because I don't know when it's coming, but he is going to go after my bloody knees. And again, that's not cheap. And people who think like, oh, you're going to go after his knees, that is not a cheap play. It is 1,000% legal, and we cut the shit out of people all the time at Wisconsin. That's what we did.
Absolutely. And the big difference is where people get confused. A cut block is one guy going low.
Yep.
A chop block, which is illegal, is one guy holding them high, the other guy going low.
Right.
That's the illegal play. We're not saying to do that.
Right.
We're just saying keep them on their toes.
Yep, absolutely.
Jump set them, dive out, do something to change it up. But like I said, it was like watching a freshman football team just scrambling like crazy, and that defense was swarming. On the D-line, you always say to get home, to get the quarterbacks home, and you want to get home. Boy, they were getting home a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, they were living in that backfield the majority of the game.
It was great to watch. And then just to piggyback off, too, about Jalen Hurts not being an accurate quarterback. I saw him drop some damn dimes in that game where they needed to be while those guys covered, and was spot on. So I think you can put that to bed now, too.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, just when you listen to it, he's not an outspoken guy.
No.
During the draft, they were questioning him whether he was going to be like a positional player, like sort of a receiver / running back / quarterback. I mean, the guy does what he has to do when he has to do it. I mean, you want to do the tush push to score a touchdown on the 1 yard line? He does it.
Right.
He has to throw the ball. We saw him throw the ball. He has to run. He runs. I mean, he could do it. You got to put him in that category to have a conversation for current quarterbacks. He's got to be up there. He got the job done. He played even in the last Super Bowl where they played the Chiefs and lost. He still had a phenomenal game. It's not like this guy's busting. I think the only question now is what really happened to the Chiefs. No matter how good the Eagles are, the Chiefs played the worst game that they could play at the highest level.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to our last podcast where you talked about your conspiracy theory and the refs. I didn't see one damn call.
No.
I mean, at all. And calls that the Chiefs got during regular season, they did not get in the Super Bowl at all. And there was a couple of times when there was one shot that they had on Mahomes. I chuckled about it, but
with the D-line member, he shot him in the face.
Yeah, and there was no call. But and the look on his face, and even Kelsey got lit up one time too, coming across the middle. And he was all pissed off, hoping for a call, and there were no calls.
It'd be interesting to find out if there was a conversation between Goodell and the officiating crew. Like, hey, we got to do it by the book. No messing around. I don't know. I mean, there's definitely there was definitely enough bad calls leading up to it, and then zero bad calls in this game that makes you think. In my head, there's still a conspiracy out there, a theory out there. They could still talk about. We'll see what happens next year. Maybe they clean it up. But yeah, I think, like we talked about in the last episode, I do think what will easily clean it up is make the rule, if it's a 15-yard penalty, you're allowed to review it. That'll take away any talk about conspiracy theory, because it'll either be fixed or not. But that needs to be established. So a couple other things that happened with this game. Did you know Patrick Mahomes showed up in like not a Kelly green, but like a dark almost like a hunter green suit
No.
to the Super Bowl.
That's interesting.
So I'm not a huge superstitious guy, but I got a little, like, I had to do things the same way, the way I got dressed, the way, like, warm-ups, like, had to be the same, all that stuff. Why would you come wearing your opposing team? Like, you're trying to make a statement, like, this is how confident I am. That it was just a weird choice. And I know these players, they wear the craziest things. Like, I think my whole rookie year, I probably wore the same shirt and tie I wore my whole senior year of college for every game.
Is there a dress code
for the road?
Each team?
I'm sure. So basically, when I was playing, the dress code was you had to wear, it had to be at least a collared shirt and no jeans, no flip-flops on the road. Home games, you get, because you're driving in the players' parking lot, you can wear, I mean, I used to go to games in sweats or mesh shorts or whatever, because you're just going players' parking lot right in the stadium. But yeah, road games, the only one I saw get away with dress code on road games, which was hilarious, because what are you going to do, was Favre. Favre would get on the plane, he'd have, in the famous words of Frank Winters, Brett Favre would have a collared polo on, a Nike. He was sponsored by Nike. Nike polo that Frank would say, Brett, did you pull that through a keyhole? It'd be so wrinkled. He'd be wearing that. He had a baseball cap. And I used to be known, like, now, when my baseball caps get worn, I'll recycle and go to a new one. Back then, I was a big guy. I like wear a hat for like 4 years, whatever. Like that was part of your pride. Brett had this hat on. I believe it was a Nike hat as well. It looked like it was 10 years old. I'm like, Brett, come on. You signed like the second biggest contract in football before I got there. And he would wear jeans and flip-flops on the plane. And we'd all be, back then, there'd be a couple guys that would push the limit. Like I remember like Nate Wayne, Bubba Franks, they'd be getting like the purple suit or like a corduroy jackets and like just different things. Nothing like it is today.
Yeah,
So
it's more of a fashion show now.
but at the same time, too, they never videotaped us and took pictures when we were going in and out of games. I mean, these guys for home games get dressed up. Like I said, for our home games, you don't see anybody from the parking lot into the locker room. So, I mean, guys would walk in with like wife beaters and practice shorts. You'd walk in that they would flip-flops on. So, I mean, that's just the way we rolled at home. But now there's there are so many more cameras at games. Like you think about, it even blows my mind when you see guys score touchdowns and there's a camera guy running in the end zone.
Right.
Like we couldn't even fathom that. Like it wasn't even the border. It wasn't even the out of bounds. It was like another line, like 3 to 6 yards behind the out of bounds line that everybody had to stay behind. So having a camera chase a guy in the end zone, or even I did experience the cameras that hung over the field. Those were even wild. Like when you're in the huddle or you're walking out and you see it like dropping down low and then raising back up because it's all on like a network of wires that just raise and lower. But yeah, so some crazy outfits. How about part of winning this game and the successful season the Eagles had was Saquon Barkley. When we're talking about winners out of this game, I think the two winners, Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman, the GM. Nick Sirianni, obviously the head coach. The one thing I laugh about with Nick Sirianni, they've been talking nonstop about this guy losing his job. And all he does is win. And you brought up Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl for the Eagles, and they ended up firing him. I don't, like obviously I'm not a coach. I don't claim to be one other than on Monday mornings, but I don't know why this is a question. I mean, he seems like an old school guy too. Earlier in the season, he almost got in a fist fight with one of the D linemen on the sidelines of a game. I think the D line coach had to separate him and pull Sirianni away from the D lineman. In the Super Bowl, it looked like he was about to go off on A.J. Brown, who later scored a touchdown and dumped the Gatorade on him, which was nice to see. But back to Howie Roseman with the Saquon Barkley deal. We've all seen this clip probably a million times in the last 2 weeks of the Giants GM and owner. It just blows my mind that you have – and Emmitt Smith touched on this, the degradation or denigration, whatever the word is. We'll have to check our vocabulary person on that. But the downgrade of the pride in running back. And when you got Saquon Barkley, arguably the MVP of the league, I know the numbers weren't there with the Giants, but how you couldn't tell he was a great player, and you're just going to let him walk. So there's a couple options they could have done. They could have paid the money to keep him, which would have been a dick move, I'll say, for lack of a better words. I'm not going to explain it, but they could have franchise tagged him, which is negative for the player because basically the player gets a large chunk of money for 1 year when you're that player and you're as good as Saquon is. You want a larger chunk of money spread out with more guarantee. But the team, that's a way for the team to be like, we're going to franchise tag you this year and give ourselves a year to figure out how to make a deal work. The negative for the players, if you get hurt in that 1 year, you're screwed out of that big contract.
Correct.
But they could have done it just to keep him with New York. Right. And then the famous line from that GM going, I won't be able to sleep if he goes to Philadelphia.
Yep.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
And let's face it, I don't think the Giants even utilized Saquon Barkley the way they needed to use him. And he didn't have an offensive line.
Yeah, you said that earlier. Yeah.
You don't have any – I mean, he's a great player. But, again, it starts the foundation of your organization starts with the offensive line. And when you don't have anybody to block for you, I don't care how good you are, that you aren't going anywhere.
We saw it with Ron with the Giants when Ron Dane got drafted in New York. Now, part of it is you can't draft a guy like Ron Dane and only give him the ball 13 times a game. That's ridiculous. He doesn't even break a sweat till after 13. But he didn't have a line there. Right. I mean, it was clear as day. There was no line. He's getting hit in the backfield. So that was definitely an issue. And, yeah, it was an issue with Saquon in New York for sure. So moving on to before we talk about the fans on the East Coast, I wanted to bring up something. So there's a lot of craziness going on in Philadelphia right now. And I had a couple of things that I've gotten called out on in my life for mentioning, saying that I'm exaggerating. So I put all these things down in my notes, and I had this verified by 3 different people, just in case I did exaggerate the story a little bit or anything.
I just can't believe that you would exaggerate a damn thing, Bill.
No, well, I don't feel like I ever have this, but just in case, because people didn't believe me, I verified it. So a couple things have happened in my life and in my town of Scranton, which is nowhere near like a Philadelphia, not even close, size-wise, crime-wise, any of that stuff. So the first thing isn't that serious, but I had to bring up because my sister, Laura,
Tylenol.
I knocked her. We were in the back of my mom's, I think, Scout. My mom was in a grocery store. And the way I remember it was an accident, and I swung around. Laura claims that it may have or may not have been intentional. But I elbowed her in the mouth, knocked out 2 of her teeth. My saving grace was my mom was still in the store. Laura ran in the store with blood running out of her mouth. My mom got embarrassed and said, get your butt back in the car right now. So she got in the car. I got off somewhat easy from that, but that's the first of it. Now the serious stuff. This is stuff that I experienced in mostly high school. And I'm not going to use anybody's names because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. One, a person I played baseball with stabbed somebody in the eyeball with a flathead screwdriver.
Oh,
number 1.
Okay. Am I going to be able to ask questions? Or
you can ask some questions. Yeah.
Okay. So intentionally stabbed him in that.
Yeah, I think it was like a fight.
It was a fight?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he brought a screwdriver to the fight. Yeah.
Did the guy lose his eye? I can only assume.
I believe he lost his eye. Lost his eye. Yeah, blind in one eye.
And was there any recourse for the action?
I believe he got in trouble, but this happened. He didn't get in that much trouble because this happened before 10th grade, and we were playing JV baseball together in 10th grade. So he was in school at that point. But I was like, I was asking a couple people, I was like, was this a rumor or did this actually, and they're like, no, it actually happened.
And was there mob ties with the family? Because you have to ask
with
that question every time.
His family, no.
Trying to make sure.
Yep, I hear you. Lunch. So I worked at the high school level a little bit with one of my jobs, and you see all these kids eating lunch inside. Our school, from 9th grade to 12th grade, everybody left the school for lunch. The reason being, if it rained or snowed and they didn't allow kids outside the school, our lunch area was like a prison yard. It was just, if there was 10 fights at lunch, I'd say that was like an average number. So they never wanted kids inside. There were so many delis and restaurants that when you left the school, everybody like dispersed in different directions. But you put all those kids in the lunch hall, even though you're doing 3 different lunches or how many ever we did, it was just like trays getting hit, food being thrown, punches being thrown.
So it's like Gen Pop.
It was. That's absolutely what it was every single time we ran. Another interesting story, on one of the lunch breaks we were outside, a kid, once again, we'll go nameless, stole a Camaro, and as he was being chased by the police, thought he was making a turn down an alley, and instead ran straight into a garage. Well, there happened to be a person standing in front of the garage, and that kid lost his leg.
Oh,
Yep.
damn.
So no leg. Another kid I went to school with, remain nameless, got dared to go down this hill by the Lackawanna River where it was known to be like a homeless community. While he went down there on the dare, got shot in the belly by a shotgun with like bird shot in it. And then the last one, which is probably the funniest, a kid in North Scranton, which is just down the road from where I grew up, bought an illegal handgun, but it didn't have a magazine. Went to, I'll say it was Bill's Sporting Goods, which is now out of business, bought a box of rounds, and they had to load it one round at a time.
Huh.
So after they loaded the first round, shot it at the dumpster, police caught him, got arrested. So that's just Scranton, Pennsylvania. Now, like to get into Philly,
Yeah.
it's going crazy down there. And the funny thing is, it's not even close to over. It's going to be a week of madness because the parade's not till Friday.
Right.
And if you think the night of the Super Bowl was crazy, I think Friday, granted, there'll probably be even a bigger police presence, but I think Friday is going to be insane with that parade.
So I had the opportunity to watch the football game with a couple of retired cops that I copped with and their wives. And we talked about, as the game was out of touch or out of reach for the Chiefs, and we are all law enforcement or previous law enforcement, and we sat around saying, to be a police officer in Philadelphia right now, this was just a calm before the storm, and you're sitting there and you don't have enough manpower to even do anything except try to stop things from being catastrophic. And just the feeling of being overwhelmed. If you're the Philadelphia PD, it's a sickening feeling. And then watching it and watching all the looting and tearing down of traffic signals and lighting shit on fire, what in the actual fuck is that? Why do they do that?
I don't know.
Why?
It's like mob stuff. Like literally, it's going back to when I grew up as a kid. You saw the craziness of fans. You saw Santa Claus get pelted by snowballs. Philly fans were notorious for throwing batteries out of the stands. And I think we said in earlier episodes where you have the Kirk Herbstreit coming out the tunnel having change thrown at his head, because anybody that played sports knows if you have a helmet on and something hits you, it rings like a bell, almost like a concussion. Their fans are just insane. And I feel like it's almost like a proud tradition of theirs is like, when I grew up as an Eagles fan, as I get older, I want to become insane and act stupid. And maybe they wanted to claim to fame like, hey, I got arrested the night of the Super Bowl and I'm proud of it. I do not get it. I mean, I saw an interview with probably a middle school at oldest age kid. Now, granted, this kid has a ski mask on, not show his identity. And they're like, isn't it too late for you to be out? And he's like cursing in the camera. And they're like, what about school? And he's like, my teacher could suck my, and I'm like, what is going on? I don't know. They're looting. I think they broke into a truck that had towels in it.
Linen, yeah, towels.
Linens, yeah.
And then
put it on the road, lit it on fire.
Yeah.
We saw the cop on the motorcycle get his head slapped. And like you said, it's like, what do? Like you go to fight back or not fight back because the cop, you go to restrain them or what. Now you got hundreds of people around you. Was it earlier in the week leading up to the Super Bowl where the guy shot the gun in the air? Did you see that video?
I did not see that video.
I don't know if it was after the NFC Championship or if it was earlier in the week. But yeah, there was a crowd and somebody just started popping a handgun off in the air. It's like, what is going on?
So let me ask you this. I mean, the Packers have won their fair share of...
Packer fans are totally different.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll tell you. So I've talked to... So as players, we'd go out to establishments, restaurants, bars after the game, and it was very similar to Badgers. Like, as a team, you go out after a home game, and you end up finding yourself interacting with fans. We'd go out, and fans, especially fans that they become friends with Packer fans, and they're like, where do we go after the game? Packer fans would be like, go here or go there. That's where all the players go after the game. I've had opposing teams come up to me, and I'm standing with other Packer players, and they know we're all players, and say, like, your fans are unbelievable. Like, I had 49ers fans say this to me. I've had Bears fans say this to me. I've had a couple teams fans say, like, there's times we're nervous to walk through our own tailgate parking lot to get to our stadium. I had one guy come up to me and be like, listen to what happened to me at your stadium in Lambeau. He's like, as I'm walking up, one guy offered me, it was against the Bears. He goes, one guy offered me bear meat, and
Right.
he's like grilling or smoking. He's like, two other guys offered me beers and this and he's just like, your fans are just friendly. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely assholes in the crowd.
Right.
And alcohol could probably drive a lot of people nuts. But for the most part, Packer fans are nice. Like, think about the Vet had a jail inside the stadium. Did you know that?
No, I did not know.
Yeah, they had the Vet Eagles old stadium.
Yeah.
In the basement or like lower area of the stadium, there was a jail because there was that many people being detained during a game.
See, I don't find it a source of pride. And if I was the
I know.
freaking mayor of Philadelphia, I'd have the damn National Guard dispatched there at attention. And I could go off on a lot of things. And I know off camera, me and you talked about how I would handle it if I was in charge. And again, like I understand celebrating with your, as a community, as your city and having that pride and bringing people together, I think is awesome. But there's there's no room for this
and
bullshit.
Here's like the line though. It's like, so we've talked enough about it, like the craziness and the unanswered question, why?
Yeah.
But then the other side of it is, like you said, it's like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you just make sure nobody has a weapon, try to limit the loot?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I mean, you saw that crowd on Broad Street.
Right.
I mean, it's shoulder to shoulder. It's like there was a game played in Philadelphia after the Super Bowl, which took place in New Orleans.
Right.
There was that many people out just celebrating and acting crazy. It's like they used to grease the poles down with grease on it so they couldn't climb it. Well, now the joke is now they get to save money on grease because they don't have to grease the poles anymore because people are just ripping them out of the ground. Why grease them?
And I also have a different perspective now as I get older and I'm a business owner. Like, I pour my heart and soul into my business, and I paid a crap ton of money, and to have somebody come through and like destroy my building, loot it, spray paint it, break shit, steal my stuff, like seriously.
Well, think about that with the business owners, and then just the taxpayers of Philadelphia with all the tax costs that's going to between the police force, the damages, the cleaning, all of that.
Yep.
That's on the taxpayers.
Yeah, so
it's a weird scenario.
It's not weird. It's bullshit.
I agree.
And I know that you're from the East Coast, so you're like, oh, this is fucking normal. It's not normal. It's bullshit. Say it's bullshit, Bill.
It's bullshit. I am
fucking
not
bullshit.
supporting it one bit.
Yeah, I know.
Well, hey, let's switch to a positive note.
All right. Well, I'm still pissed off.
What do you think the best commercial was in the
Oh, that's an easy one. How about the boobs commercial, Bill?
Novartis
had a boobs commercial.
They did. And I thought
commercials I thought were down this year. They sucked. I didn't find one good. I don't understand the flesh cowboy hat one. That was ridiculous. I didn't get that one at all. But by hands down was the boobs commercial by Novartis.
Yeah. And we just, ladies, get your mammograms. Get your boobs checked.
Absolutely.
Do your self-checks in the shower.
Hire somebody to do it for you. I don't care. But it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there that will help out too.
Yeah, I know there. I agree with that 100%. But that was by far the best commercial, and super happy with that commercial. But all in all, commercials were shit to this year.
Yes,
100% crap. There was no fun, nothing.
I tell you, like other than the Eagles' offense, the Eagles' defense, which performed near perfect, and even their special teams, the Chiefs' offense sucked, the Chiefs' defense sucked, the commercials sucked.
Yeah.
Overall, the Super Bowl was, unless you could appreciate how good the Eagles played on their side of the ball, that was the only exciting thing about that game.
Yeah, pretty uneventful.
Yeah.
So it was kind of annoying. Hey, but let's look at some more positive stuff, Bill. We had a couple former Badgers that played again in the Super Bowl. We had Leo Chanel. I think it's his third or fourth year, and
I don't think Chanel played. I don't think he was he in it? I think the Chiefs released him.
I could have swore I saw number 54 out there, and he made some tackles.
Okay.
I'm
not positive.
99%.
I know Zach Bond because Zach Bond got the other.
The Eagles' victory denied former UW linebacker Leo Chanel from winning a Super Bowl.
Oh, you're right. My bad. I read that incorrectly.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one sheet, and I gave that sheet to you.
Well, he's still playing, and I was cheering for him. I'm not sure. I was cheering for him as a Badger. And then how about Zach Brown?
That was unbelievable.
Zach Brown came. I mean, the guy was just a machine out there, just a tackling
machine. Did you see the video of that with on the sidelines the series before? He goes, "I'm gonna get a pick."
Really?
He was talking it up on the sidelines before it happened. Then even the better thing, I'm gonna just go back and I'll come back to him. The better thing was, do you remember with the Patriots where the Patriots intercepted? Who was it? Russell Wilson on that play to end the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that play in practice, the guy kept messing up, kept going over the top, and Belichick was telling me you got to go underneath.
Right.
He goes underneath, gets an interception. That's exactly like what Zach Bond. Zach Bond said in practice, he dropped that ball once or twice.
Oh, no shit.
That exact play he dropped once or twice.
No
and
shit.
That was the play he got in the Super Bowl.
That's freaking
That was
awesome.
exciting.
Yeah. And again, we root for our alma mater and obviously diehard Badgers fan. And then when you see Badgers perform, and come out and there's a sense of pride from your former players and like, hell yeah, good 100%. For you guys. That's freaking amazing. So very proud of Zach and even for Leo for getting there and play the way that he does. It's just unbelievable. So yeah, very happy with the Badgers.
Well, lastly, I want to mention, so after seeing all this stuff with AJ Brown, hearing about some of the mental health he had that we brought up on the last show, and then 2 weeks ago in the championship game, being seen on the sidelines with the famous book. It was Inner Excellence. So we got it for the podcast. We also have one for Kevin for the next time he joins us. But I was thinking maybe we start a book club. Maybe we give it a read and we could talk about that in future episodes. But we all have the book Inner Excellence. We're going to give it a look. But just skimming through and reading on the back, like I really did not know much about this prior to getting it. And it's a lot about just mental training, which we've said before, we're going to talk about in future episodes. But what made us successful later in life are all the traits we learned during sports. And that's sort of what this book is about. It talks about traits that successful athletes have done, how it transformed their lives, mental skills, everything like that. And that's what we say has worked well for us. And hopefully in future episodes, we start digging in a little bit more into leadership, into goals a little bit more, and just different topics like that. So we'll have fun with it. Hopefully we could get a little of the book breezed over.
So can I ask you, like, you didn't read shit in school for books. When's the last time you actually read a book from cover?
It's been a minute.
Like for our fans out there,
it's been a minute. So
is it 20 years?
I'm gonna have to. No, come on.
15 years?
But I haven't. I'll say
10 years.
In the last 20 years, I haven't read that many books. So I'm looking forward to this. But I might have to do like a finger.
You haven't read in 46 years. You haven't read that many fucking books. Okay, let's be honest here. Like,
are you saying you're?
Don't church it up. Seriously.
Are you saying you're like this big time? What are you in a book club or something?
No, but I actually read quite a bit because I got to keep my mind sharp because I've had a lot of concussions, and I think that reading is supposed to help that out. I read somewhere, so I do try to exercise.
Where you were because of the concussions.
Yes, so I actually read.
Well, I'm going to try and exercise my mind now.
So. I think that's probably a good idea. But no, that's kind of a good idea. And if you want to start a book club, but you have to make sure that
I'm not saying that was.
If we're going to do like chapters 1 and 2, I'm probably going to need a couple of weeks to be able to read that.
We're just letting the audience know we're not coming back in a week being like we read the book. Here.
Yeah,
like it's not.
Not happening. But
all right, yeah, I think that was a good show. Tune in next time, and we look forward to doing another episode.
All right. And again, this is a 217 South Mills podcast brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Have a good one, folks. Thanks. Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.